You're listening to The Dana Show.
The president is in Kansas City, Missouri today, along with Missouri Governor Jay Nixon and Senator Claire McCaskill, who I hope some members of the press ask her, considering the state of Missouri voted against Obamacare twice, Prop C, Prop E, over, by a vast majority, how she's going to stand on defunding Obamacare. But they're in Kansas City to talk about how the middle class is doing just so amazingly well with Obamonomics. And they're going to be at one of the Ford plant, which I think is interesting because they're at the plant that didn't take a bailout, talking about how they help the automotive industry. You can't make this stuff up. Joining me right now, Missouri's Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder to opine on the president's visit and as well as his entourage. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Thank you for having me back, Dana. It's a pleasure.
It's good to speak with you. Do you find it just ever so slightly ironic that they're going to be speaking at a Ford plant when Ford was the company that didn't take a bailout? I
do find that more than a little ironic.
Yeah.
That the president bailout would come to a Ford plant, the one of the big three domestic automakers that did not take the bailout. But Governor Status Quo Jay Nixon, Governor Status Quo, joined by President more of the same, are in our state, and they're just so thrilled with the state of Missouri's economy, celebrating with Claire McCaskill today. Dana, I don't need any talking points from the RNC. You know what I'm going to share with your listeners? The daily newspaper in St. Louis, Missouri yesterday. I don't know how many people saw this, but at the
Probably not anybody.
At the top of the front page of the daily newspaper in St. Louis, Missouri, here is the big headline. And as you listen to these words, think this is Jay Nixon's Missouri and Barack Obama's America.
Mm-hmm.
The big headline says 2010 census data is more bad news for area families. And then a big black headline, poverty up, income down.
Yeah.
It then goes on to inform readers household income. Missouri is one of two states, only 2 states out of 50, in which median household income dropped last year. Now, they're putting on a dog and pony show at an auto plant outside Kansas City. I'm thrilled that auto plant is doing well and that those Missourians, those workers are employed there. Good for them.
Yeah.
But it is no endorsement of the Obama-Nixon's policies. Let's go back to President Bailout's bailout in 2009, where he essentially nationalized Chrysler Corporation, right?
Mm-hmm.
The part that he didn't nationalize, he gave to the United Auto Workers Union. And they stiffed the bondholders who took a lower rate of return in order for the guarantee under our bankruptcy law that when they entered bankruptcy, if that eventuality occurred, the bondholders, are first in line to be paid. The president, like a South American dictator, set aside bankruptcy law and just handed most of that company to the United Auto Workers. What happened to our 2 auto plants out near Fenton on I-44, the 2 Chrysler plants? Not 1 plant, but 2.
Yep.
They were both shuttered and razed to the ground, and it's now an enormous 300-acre parking lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Where Missouri workers were employed just a few years ago. Now, that's where your tax money went, to bail out Chrysler so that they can build plants in foreign countries.
Yeah. Exactly. Whenever I drive down that highway and I look, and I mean, because I had family members that worked at those plants, and they had to go elsewhere.
And they were great jobs.
Oh,
what a shattering event it was for them and their communities throughout Jefferson County, your native area, St. Louis County, Franklin County, down into the Ozarks, where auto workers were employed, and those jobs are gone. Dana, there were 78% more United Auto Workers working in Missouri 10 years ago than there are today.
Yeah.
Those jobs are gone. They're gone to Mississippi, Alabama, other southern states, Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas. And I will tell you something else. Right out there on I-44, your listeners are aware that we have the nation's largest moving company, United Van Lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the day after, 9 days ago, we had the veto session at which Governor Nixon's tax cut veto was sadly sustained when we fell 15 votes short in the House. In other words, the Republicans stepped forward in the legislature with their answer to getting Missouri's economy on the right track again.
Right.
It was to leave more money in business and personal incomes for us to decide to save and invest and spend on our own.
Right.
Governor vetoed that, and his veto sadly was not overridden. The next day came another news story in another St. Louis media reported that United Van Lines, which keeps track of who moves where and when and how often, because that's their business.
Yep.
They reported that there are 3 cities in America that have the highest percentage of people leaving to go to southern and western states for the most part.
Right.
Those cities are New York City, Chicago, and St. Louis.
Well, do you think that is Governor Nixon going to attack United Van Lines the way he did Governor Perry, just simply for pointing this out?
Yeah, well, no, Governor Nixon's state of denial is even worse than you might imagine, and there's breaking news on this today that I didn't know about until a few minutes ago, thanks to our friend Dwayne Lester at Missouri Torch and his Twitter feed. I learned that Governor Nixon was in Independence, Missouri this morning, I guess before the event at the Clay Como Ford plant outside Kansas City, and he was at something called the Council of State Governments event in Independence. And there's video of him from KNBC TV, reporter Mike Mahoney, and it's up on the web. And Governor Nixon is asked a question by somebody in the audience, and he denies that there is competition among the states for business. He denies that states are competing among each other. States have always competed among each other, and that's part of the genius of the American federal system.
Yeah.
Governor Nixon goes on to say, no, we're competing against foreign countries. Well, that's true, but to say that it's a binary choice, that it's either or, is ridiculous and childlike.
Yeah.
But that's our governor's vision.
Oh, completely. And I'm wondering, too, just to kind of touch back really briefly to, automotive and how the president and Senator McCaskill and Governor Nixon are going to be in Kansas City talking at the Ford plant of, irony of all ironies. I wonder, Lieutenant Governor, if anyone's going to ask about the president going after car dealerships the same way that they went after grassroots groups, because there was that big story just a year or so ago where you had all of these different car dealerships that were they were scrutinized, and many of them were actually forced to close. And I'm wondering
there was a good list.
Yeah.
There was a good list for them among the dealers, and there was a bad list, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And if you were a friend of this president, friend of this administration, if you knew somebody who could call up Valerie Jarrett or somebody else in the White House, you were going to be on the good list.
Right.
The hardworking guy who's out there trying to feed his family by running a car dealership who had no political connections, he was out of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the car czar, that automotive task force, which seems so odd that we even had one like that. So I hope to see some of those questions, although I don't anticipate, Lieutenant Governor, seeing them in the echo chamber of the KC Star, the Post-Distrash here in St. Louis, but because their first event was closed to the public, and so we'll see if they take questions.
Dana, we're 4 years and 3 months into this so-called recovery that began in the summer of 2009. Missouri is 105,000 jobs below where we were when the recession started. This is no recovery worthy of the name.
Right.
Not in Missouri and not in the United States.
Yep.
We need new policies and new leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope that we can get him. Missouri's Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder. Always a pleasure, sir. We'll be watching everything that happens in KC. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Dana.
Take care.